The arena floor was black stone, polished smooth by 1,000 years of blood. Under the blazing lights it gleamed like obsidian, reflecting the faces of 70,000 alien spectators who had come to watch a human die. Colonel Nathaniel Bridger stood in the center of that ancient killing ground chest, heaving fists still clenched. Blood dripped from a cut above his left eye. His combat fatigues were torn at the shoulder where four razor-sharp claws had come within inches of ending his life. Around him, the crowd roared like a living thing. Wave after wave of sound crashed down from the tiered seats that rose toward the artificial sky of this nightmare place. 10 feet away, the champion of the Arcturus Empire lay motionless. The creature had been twice Nate's size. 4 arms, each one corded with muscle that could crush steel. Natural armor plating that covered its torso like medieval plate mail. But none of that had saved it. Because Nate Bridger had learned something in 20 years of military service. Size didn't matter. Armor didn't matter. What mattered was finding the weakness. And every living thing had one. The champion's weakness had been the soft tissue between its shoulder joints. 3 quick strikes. Precise, calculated. Lethal. Nate didn't look at the body he'd killed before. It never got easier. Never got cleaner. But he'd done what he had to do. Just like he'd done every day for the 8 months since his transport ship had been intercepted on its way to the Mars colony. 8 months in Arcturus prisons. 8 months of watching good soldiers die in these arenas while crowds cheered. The horn sounded, 3 long blasts that echoed across the killing floor. The crowd began to quiet, thousands of voices dropping to an expectant murmur. Nate turned slowly, scanning the arena walls. Somewhere up there in the royal box that floated impossibly above the highest seats sat the man responsible for all of this. Overlord Kryn Mordain, the tyrant who had seized the Arcturus throne 5 years ago. The man who had turned a once peaceful empire into a machine of conquest and slavery. A spotlight blazed to life, illuminating that floating platform. Nate could see the throne now. Massive. Carved from something that looked like white bone but couldn't be. Beside it stood a figure in crimson robes. The Herald. The mouthpiece of tyranny. The Herald's voice boomed across the arena, amplified by technology Nate didn't understand. Deep, resonant, speaking perfect English with an accent that reminded him of old European aristocracy. The human has proven himself worthy. Nate said nothing, his jaw tightened. He has defeated our champion in honorable combat. By the ancient laws of our people, he has earned a reward. Here it comes, Nate thought. They all got rewards. Gold, weapons, sometimes ships, bribes to make them forget they were prisoners, bribes to make them complicit. Bring forth the prisoners. 2 sets of heavy doors ground open at opposite ends of the arena. Nate's head snapped toward the sound. His hand instinctively reached for a weapon that wasn't there. From the eastern entrance, 4 guards emerged. Between them, they dragged a figure in chains. Even at this distance, Nate could see the shimmer of silver skin. The prisoner stumbled, went down to one knee, was yanked roughly back to standing. The chains clinked with each forced step. From the western entrance, another group of guards appeared. Another prisoner. This one moved differently, smaller, more fragile. The guards practically carried this one across the black stone. Nate's stomach turned cold. 2 prisoners, both female, both clearly not human. The guards marched their captives to the center of the arena, forming them into a line 20 feet in front of Nate. Close enough now that he could see details that made his throat tighten. The first prisoner was tall, nearly 6 feet. Her skin was the color of polished silver, catching the light like metal, but moving like flesh. Scars covered her visible skin. Arms, face, neck. The kind of scars that came from a lifetime of combat. Her hair was white-cropped, short in a military style. But it was her eyes that struck Nate hardest. Violet, burning with something that looked like rage barely contained. She stood despite the chains, despite the weight of the metal collar around her neck. She stood like a soldier at attention. The second prisoner was smaller, perhaps 5'6". Her skin was pale blue, almost translucent in places like fine porcelain. Dark hair fell past her shoulders, tangled and matted. Where the first prisoner stood defiant, this one seemed to fold in on herself. Her head was down, her shoulders shook slightly, but Nate noticed her hands, stained with what looked like ink. The fingers of someone who spent their life writing. Both wore gray prison tunics, Both had heavy chains binding their wrists and ankles. Both had collars locked around their throats. The herald's voice rang out again. Before you stand two females captured in recent campaigns against those who resist the natural order of the strong. A holographic display suddenly materialized above the prisoners. Massive, three-dimensional, impossible to ignore. The display showed the silver-skinned woman standing on a balcony. She wore armor then, ceremonial but clearly functional. A crown of twisted metal sat on her head. Below her, thousands of people cheered. The image quality was perfect. Too perfect. This one, the herald intoned, is Serafina Valcor, once empress of the Arcturus Empire, overthrown 5 years ago for her weakness, for her foolish belief that compassion could govern an empire. The hologram shifted. Now it showed Serafina in chains being dragged through corridors. The image froze on her face. The defiance was already there, even in defeat. The display changed again. Now it showed the pale blue woman in what looked like a laboratory or library. She was younger in this image, surrounded by ancient texts and glowing holographic displays. Her hands moved gracefully through data streams, organizing information at impossible speeds. This one is Dr. Lyra Ashenhard, noted scholar of the Arcturus academic elite, arrested 2 years ago for the crime of questioning the Overlord's wisdom. The hologram showed her arrest, scientists in similar blue skin tones being lined up against a wall. The image went dark before showing what came next, but Nate could imagine. The holograms vanished. The herald spread his forearms wide in a gesture that might have been meant to look magnanimous. By the right of victory, human warrior, you may choose one as your reward. She will serve you for the rest of her days. Choose wisely. The crowd erupted, not cheering now, chanting. A single word in their language that Nate didn't need translated. Choose, choose, choose. 70,000 voices demanding he claim ownership of another living being. Nate's hands clenched into fists at his sides. His jaw worked. He'd been in the military since he was 18 years old. Joined up right out of high school in Cheyenne, Wyoming. His father had been Air Force. His grandfather before that. Service was in the Bridger blood. And with that service came certain values. Values that his drill instructors had hammered home. Values that every oath of enlistment reinforced. All men are created equal. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. No one should be property. I need a moment, Nate said. His voice didn't carry like the herald's, but the crowd quieted enough to hear him. He walked toward the two prisoners slowly. The guards tensed, but didn't interfere. He stopped 5 feet away, close enough to see the details that the holograms had hidden. Serafina's scars weren't random. They were precise, surgical almost, like she'd been tortured systematically. But her posture hadn't changed, spine straight, shoulders back, a soldier's bearing even in chains. Lyra's hands trembled, but Nate saw something else. The ink stains weren't just random marks. They formed patterns, mathematical equations maybe, or writing in a language he didn't recognize. She'd been writing something even in prison. His eyes moved between them. Serafina met his gaze directly, challenging, daring him. Lyra kept her head down, but he caught a glimpse of her eyes, not as broken as her posture suggested, calculating, watching. And then he saw it, just for a fraction of a second. Serafina's left hand twitched, one finger extended, pointed down at the stone. Lyra's right foot shifted almost imperceptibly, dragged along the ground. Both movements so subtle that anyone not watching closely would have missed them. But Nate Bridger had spent 2 decades in military intelligence. He'd been trained to read people, to catch the signals others missed. And that twitch, that foot movement, those weren't random. They were communication. These two knew each other. And more than that, they were working together. Nate's mind raced. If they knew each other, if they were coordinating, then this whole situation became different. This wasn't just 2 random prisoners being offered as prizes. This was something else, a test, a trap, maybe both. He thought about the offer, take one as a reward, serve him for the rest of her days. The words made him sick. But beyond that, what did it mean? Take the warrior empress and have a fighter at his side, someone who could help him escape this place. Or take the scholar and have access to knowledge. Information about this empire that could be valuable. But that was the trap, wasn't it? They wanted him to think tactically, to choose based on what would benefit him, to prove that humans were just as pragmatic and ruthless as the Arcturus overlords. And what happened to the one he didn't choose, the Herald, had been clear. One would serve, but the other dies tomorrow. Nate turned away from the prisoners. He looked up at the floating platform where Overlord Kryn sat on his bone-white throne. The old tyrant was leaning forward now, interested, waiting. The crowd's chanting grew louder, more insistent. Choose, choose, choose. Nate took a deep breath. 20 years of service, every oath he'd ever taken, every value he'd ever been taught, all of it came down to this moment. He thought about his mother. She'd passed when he was 12, cancer. But he remembered the last thing she'd told him in the hospital. Her hand in his weak, but still warm. Promise me something, Nate. Promise me you'll never lose your humanity, no matter what happens, no matter how hard the world gets. You hold on to what makes you decent. Nate's voice rang out clear and strong across the arena floor. I choose neither. For 3 seconds, there was absolute silence. 70,000 beings holding their breath. And then the arena exploded into chaos. Some screamed in outrage. Others shouted in confusion. Arguments broke out in the stands. Guards looked at each other uncertainly. This had never happened before. The ancient laws were clear. The victor must choose a prize. On the floating platform, Overlord Kryn stood. He was tall, Nate saw now. Taller than the guards. His skin was a darker shade of blue than Lyra's, more purple. Age had turned it almost gray in places. He wore robes that looked like they cost more than a military transport ship, and on his face was something that made Nate's blood run cold. He was smiling. The herald held up his 4 arms, calling for silence. It took nearly a minute for the crowd to settle. When he spoke again, his voice carried a note of genuine surprise. The human refuses to claim his prize. This has not occurred in our recorded history. The crowd murmured, confusion, anger, some grudging respect. By refusing, the herald continued, he has insulted our most sacred traditions. The penalty for such insult is death. No surprise there, Nate thought grimly. However, the Overlord is generous. He offers you one final chance, human. Choose one of the females or face execution, along with both prisoners. Their deaths will pay for your insult to our ways. Behind him, Nate heard a sharp intake of breath. Serafina. So she hadn't expected that twist. Good. That meant this wasn't entirely scripted. Nate kept his focus on the floating platform. On Overlord Kryn, the old tyrant was still smiling, watching, like a scientist observing an experiment. I have a counter-offer, Nate called out. The herald's expression shifted, surprise again. Prisoners do not make counter-offers. I'm not a prisoner. I'm a victor. You said so yourself. I won honorable combat. By your ancient laws, I've earned something. A long pause. Kryn leaned back in his throne, one hand stroking his chin. He made a small gesture. The herald turned, listened to whispered instructions, then faced the arena again. The Overlord is intrigued. Speak. Nate had exactly one card to play, one thing that might be valuable enough to buy time, to change the equation. I have information, and he said, about human military capabilities, defense weaknesses, fleet movements. Information that could help your empire in the war that's coming. That got a reaction. The crowd noise changed pitch. Interested now. Overlord Kryn leaned forward again. Even the guards looked more alert. Why would you betray your own people? The herald asked. Because I want to survive, Nate said. The lie came easily. He'd told harder ones in intelligence work. I've seen what you do to prisoners who don't cooperate. I've been here 8 months. I know how this ends for me, unless I give you a reason to keep me alive. And what do you want in exchange for this information? Both prisoners, Nate said, and a ship to take us back to human space. Once there, I'll serve as your agent. I'll send intelligence back to you. But I need proof of my value. I need something to show that I've turned against my own people. Taking both females, keeping them as servants, that would be proof enough. No human would welcome me back after that. I'd have no choice but to serve you faithfully. Brilliant, actually, in a sick, twisted way. A human who would keep slaves could never return to human society. He'd be completely dependent on Arcturus' support, a perfect double agent. The Herald conferred with Overlord Kryn again. The conversation took longer this time. Other advisors joined in. Nate could see the debate playing out on the floating platform. Some advisors gesturing angrily, others nodding thoughtfully. Finally, Kryn raised one hand. Instant silence. The Herald's voice boomed once more. The Overlord will grant you a private audience. But be warned, human. If your information proves false, your death will be prolonged and painful, as will the deaths of both females. Guards escort them to the throne room. The corridors of the Imperial Palace were carved from the same black stone as the arena, but here the walls were covered in carvings, reliefs that showed the history of the Arcturus Empire. Victories, conquests, subjugations. Nate walked between two guards who each had to weigh 300 pounds and carried energy weapons that hummed with barely contained power. Behind him, he could hear the shuffle and clink of chains. Seraphina and Lyra were being dragged along by their own guards. They climbed stairs, hundreds of them. The architecture here was meant to humble visitors, to make them understand how far they were from power, how much distance separated them from the throne. Finally, they reached a set of massive doors, 30 feet tall, carved with scenes of conquest. The guards announced their arrival in their own language. The doors swung open silently. The throne room was exactly what Nate expected from a tyrant with delusions of divinity. Huge, ostentatious. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadow. Strange lights floated in the air without visible support. Rare plants from across the galaxy grew in expensive containers, and at the far end, sitting on his throne of bone-white material, was Overlord Kryn Mordain. Up close, he looked older than Nate had thought. Deep lines creased his face. His eyes were a pale yellow color like old paper, but those eyes were sharp, missing nothing. The guards forced Nate and the two prisoners to their knees 20 feet from the throne. Nate noticed that Seraphina went down slowly, still fighting the chains. Lyra practically collapsed, her strength clearly failing. Kryn studied them in silence for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was surprisingly soft, cultured. He spoke English as well as the Herald, but with less accent. Do you know what I find most interesting about humans, Colonel Bridger? Nate's head came up sharply. They knew his rank. They'd done their homework. You are predictable, Kryn continued. Your values make you easy to manipulate. You believe in equality, in justice, in the inherent worth of all sentient beings. Noble sentiments. But in a universe of predators, such beliefs are weapons your enemies can use against you. Is that why you gave me this choice? Nate asked. To prove humans are predictable? Kryn smiled. It made him look like a kindly grandfather. The effect was worse than if he'd looked cruel. I have been testing captured soldiers from many species, offering them the same choice. Do you want to know the results? Nate said nothing. The Krell warriors always choose the fighter. They respect strength. The Therian merchants always choose the scholar. They value knowledge. But humans, Kryn's smile widened. Humans refuse to choose at all. 3 times I have offered this test. 3 times the human chose neither, and then died for their principles. You are the 4th. So this was always a setup, Nate said. Everything is a setup, Colonel, but that does not make your choice any less real or any less revealing. Kryn leaned forward. Now, tell me about these military secrets. Nate took a breath. Time to sell the lie. Time to be convincing. Human defenses in this sector are concentrated around 3 points, he began. Mars Colony, Titan Station, and the lunar shipyards. The Mars Colony is the strongest position, heavy guns, shield generators. But there's a weakness in the power grid. If you hit the thermal regulators on the southern hemisphere, the shields will collapse within 6 hours. He kept talking, giving details, coordinates, technical specifications, all of it pulled from his time in intelligence work, and all of it completely false. The coordinates were off by millions of miles. The technical specifications described systems that didn't exist, but it all sounded plausible. That was the trick to good misinformation. Make it 90% accurate, Salt and just enough lies to be devastating. Kryn listened intently. Occasionally he would ask a question. Nate answered smoothly. Behind him he could hear Serafina shifting slightly. Was she impressed? Worried? Impossible to tell. When Nate finished, Kryn sat back in his throne. He looked at one of his advisors, a shorter being with 6 arms and skin like tree bark. What do you think, General Volkar? Does this information seem credible? The general stepped forward. He studied Nate with eyes that looked like black marbles. It aligns with what our scouts have reported, my lord. The defensive positions match. The technology he describes fits human capabilities. And yet, Kryn said softly, I suspect Colonel Bridger is lying. Nate's stomach dropped, but he kept his face neutral. Why would I lie? I'm offering you my only bargaining chip. Because you are human, and humans lie when they believe the cause is just. Kryn stood from his throne. He was even taller than Nate had thought, 7 feet easily. He descended the steps slowly, each footfall echoing in the vast chamber. He stopped in front of Nate, looked down at him with those pale yellow eyes. But here is what you do not understand, Colonel. It does not matter if you are lying. Nate's mind raced. What Kryn walked past him to where Serafina knelt in her chains. He reached down, lifted her chin with one finger. She jerked her head away violently, but he'd already made his point. Do you know why I really overthrew my niece? Kryn asked. He wasn't looking at Nate anymore. He was addressing the room. It was not because she was weak, it was because she was changing things, granting rights to conquered species, abolishing slavery, creating councils where everyone had a voice. She believed, as humans believe, that compassion could govern an empire. He turned back to Nate. I needed to prove her wrong. I needed to show the galaxy that only strength matters, only power endures. And what better proof than this? He gestured to include Nate in both prisoners. A human warrior, offered 2 slaves, refuses both on principle, and in doing so becomes the perfect propaganda. Nate's blood ran cold as he understood. When you return to human space with these 2 as your servants, Kryn continued, it will show other humans what happens when they fight the Empire. Their heroes are broken, their values abandoned. It will demoralize them more than any battle. And if the information I gave you is false, Nate asked, then we will discover that when we use it, and we will hunt you down across the galaxy. But by then, the damage to human morale will be done. You see, Colonel, this is not a gamble for me. I win either way. The throne room fell silent except for the soft hum of the floating lights. Kryn walked back to his throne, sat, arranged his robes carefully. Then he made a gesture with one hand. Give them a ship. Install the monitoring equipment. Ensure they can reach human space. But make certain every word they speak, every action they take is recorded. I want to watch this unfold. The guards moved forward to lift the prisoners. Nate was hauled to his feet roughly. Serafina and Lyra were pulled upright, chains clanking. As they were being led out, Kryn's voice followed them. One more thing, Colonel Bridger. I do hope you appreciate the irony. You refused to choose between 2 lives. So I have arranged it so you must carry both on your conscience. Every moment they remain in chains, remember that you put them there. The ship was small, barely large enough for 3 people and supplies. It had a main cabin with basic seating, a small sleeping area with 3 bunks, a galley for food preparation, and a cockpit. Nate stood in the main cabin and counted cameras. He found 12 without even trying hard, mounted in corners, hidden in ventilation grates, disguised as control panels. The entire ship was a surveillance station. Behind him, Serafina and Lyra were brought aboard. Their chains had been removed from their ankles, but their wrists were still bound. The collars remained locked around their throats. The guards left without a word. The airlock sealed with a hiss. Nate heard the docking clamps release. Through the small windows, he watched the Arcturus station begin to fall away as the ship's autopilot engaged. 12 days to human space. 12 days in this floating prison with 2 women who had every reason to hate him. 12 days under constant surveillance. Serafina moved to one side of the cabin and sat on the floor, her back against the wall. She stared at nothing. Lyra found the opposite corner and curled up there, making herself as small as possible. Nate remained standing. He looked at each camera in turn, making sure whoever was watching knew he'd spotted them. Then he spoke, his voice carrying clearly through the cabin. "The chains on your wrists look uncomfortable. You won't try to escape. There's nowhere to run in space." He walked to a control panel and entered a code. The wrist restraints on both women clicked open and fell to the floor. Serafina's head came up sharply. Her gaze locked onto him. Suspicion, confusion, and underneath it a flash of something else. Recognition. Lyra rubbed her wrists where the metal had left marks. She looked at Nate with those large calculating eyes, watching, thinking. Nate turned away and moved to the cockpit. He needed to check their course, needed to understand the ship's systems, needed to start planning. But before he left the main cabin, he caught something. Just a flicker of movement. Lyra's foot, drawing on the floor, a mark in the thin layer of dust that covered everything in the ship. A symbol, ancient-looking, circular, with lines radiating from the center. Serafina saw it too. Her eyes widened almost imperceptibly, and then so subtle that Nate almost missed it, she nodded. Once, tiny, deliberate, the game, Nate realized, had truly begun. Through the window, the stars stretched into lines as the ship accelerated toward human space. Somewhere in those vast reaches of darkness, a reckoning was coming. Not the one Overlord Kryn expected. Not the one anyone expected, because Nate Bridger had made his choice in that arena. He'd chosen to do the right thing, and now he was going to see that choice through to the end, whatever the cost. He just hoped these two women had a plan, because his plan ended at getting all three of them away from Arcturus alive. What came after that was going to require more than military tactics. That was going to require trust. And trust, Nate knew, was the hardest thing to earn when you started by putting people in chains. Behind him, Serafina stood slowly. She walked to the window, stared out at the stars. Her reflection in the glass showed a face carved from stone, revealing nothing, but her hands hanging at her sides formed shapes. Subtle, quick, sign language, or something like it. Nate memorized the movements. He'd figure out what they meant later. The vessel's systems purred around them. The stars called them forward, and somewhere ahead in the darkness, the real battle was waiting. Not a battle of weapons, not a battle of fleets, a battle of wits, of patience, of calculated risks and desperate gambles. The kind of battle where victory looked like defeat right up until the moment everything changed. The ship accelerated. 3 souls aboard, 3 agendas. And back on the Arcturus station in his throne room of impossible wealth and casual cruelty, Overlord Kryn watched 72 screens showing every angle of that tiny ship. He smiled. Let the games begin. Day 1 of the journey began in silence. Nate Bridger stood at the cockpit controls watching the navigation display track their progress toward human space. 12 days, 288 hours locked in this surveillance box with 2 women who had every reason to want him dead. Behind him in the main cabin, Serafina sat cross-legged on the floor. She hadn't moved in 3 hours. Her eyes were closed, but Nate knew she wasn't sleeping. Her breathing was too controlled, too measured. She was meditating, or planning. Probably both. Lyra had claimed one of the small bunks in the sleeping area. She lay on her side facing the wall, curled into a defensive position, but her hands moved occasionally, tracing patterns on the metal surface, writing equations in empty air. Her mind never stopped working. Nate had counted 24 cameras so far, 24 angles of surveillance covering every square inch of the ship. Someone back on that Arcturus station was watching, always watching, which meant every word, every gesture, every interaction had to be carefully calculated. He returned to the main cabin, moved to the small galley. The food supplies were basic: nutrition packs, protein rations, water recyclers, enough for 3 people for 20 days with a cushion for emergencies. He pulled out 3 packs and placed them on the narrow table, looked at Serafina. You should eat. She opened her eyes slowly, those violet irises fixed on him with an intensity that was almost physical. Why do you care if I eat? Because I need you alive, Nate said, loud enough for the microphones. Both of you, you're my proof, my ticket back into human society as an asset to the Arcturus Empire. Can't do that if you're dead. How practical, Serafina said. Her voice carried an edge like broken glass. Practical keeps you breathing, Nate replied. He turned toward the sleeping area. Dr. Ashenhart, you need nutrition too. Lyra stirred. sat up slowly. Her pale blue skin looked almost gray in the ship's artificial lighting. She moved to the table without meeting anyone's eyes, took a nutrition pack, tore it open with shaking hands. They ate in silence. The only sound was the hum of the engines and the soft rush of recycled air through the ventilation system. Nate watched them both from his position leaning against the galley counter. Serafina ate mechanically, fuel for a body she maintained like a weapon. Lyra ate slowly, carefully, like someone who'd learned not to waste anything. When they finished, Serafina stood. She looked directly at one of the cameras mounted in the corner, stared into it for 5 long seconds. Then she turned to Nate. "I need to use the hygiene facility." "It's through that door," Nate said, pointing. "Privacy lock works. I had it checked." Something flickered across her face. Surprised, she covered it quickly. Walked to the small bathroom and sealed the door behind her. Lyra remained at the table. Her fingers drummed a pattern on the surface. Not random. Deliberate. Nate recognized it after a moment. Morse code, but not standard Morse. Something else. The pattern repeated. 4 beats. Pause. 7 beats. Pause. 3 beats. When Serafina emerged 10 minutes later, Lyra stood and took her turn in the hygiene facility. The day passed like that. Small interactions, careful distances, everyone performing for the cameras, everyone waiting. Day 3 changed everything. Nate had been monitoring the ship's systems through the night cycle. Sleep came hard in space, always had. The artificial day-night cycle never quite felt right to his body. At 0300 hours by Earth time, something happened. One of the cameras in the galley flickered. The indicator light that showed it was active went dark for exactly 3 minutes. Nate moved immediately, entered the galley, found Serafina already there, a maintenance panel open beside her. She held a small tool made from a piece of broken utensil. She looked at him, put one finger to her lips. Then she whispered so quietly he had to lean in to hear. 3 minutes. That's all I can give us without triggering alerts. Talk fast. But Nate's respect for her went up several notches. She'd been studying the ship's systems, found a weakness, exploited it. "I'm listening," he whispered back. "I had a plan before the arena," Serafina said. Her words came rapid fire, precise. Knew Kryn would use me as propaganda. Knew he'd offer me as a prize. Needed someone from outside the Empire. Someone who would understand what I was trying to do, which is take back my throne, free my people, end the tyranny. She glanced at a small timer on her wrist. 2 minutes left. The Crown cipher. It's not just a defense grid key. It's a quantum broadcast system, built into the genetic code of the royal bloodline. I can trigger it from anywhere in the galaxy if I can access a powerful enough relay station. Earth has quantum relays, Nate said. Exactly. Once we reach your planet, I can broadcast directly to every Arcturus world. Show them the truth about Kryn. Rally the resistance. But I need time. And I need your people to trust me enough to give me access. That's a tall order, which is why I needed you. An honorable man. Someone who would refuse to own slaves. Someone who would become my ally instead of my captor. She smiled. It transformed her face, made her look younger. Less like a warrior and more like the idealist she'd been before exile. You passed the test in the arena. Now we play the long game. Lyra, Nate asked, is she part of this? She's essential. The Crown cipher needs a technical specialist to interface properly. She's the best in the Empire. Serafina glanced at her timer. 30 seconds. From now on, we communicate through dead drops. Old spycraft. Leave messages in places the cameras can't see clearly. Bathroom. Ventilation shaft access panels. Trust nothing electronic. The camera light flickered. Serafina moved like lightning. The maintenance panel sealed. The makeshift tool vanished. She was back at the table looking bored and defeated before the camera fully reactivated. Nate poured himself water from the recycler, took a long drink, walked back to the cockpit as if nothing had happened, but everything had changed. Day 4 brought the first flashback. Nate was running diagnostics on the navigation system when it hit him. No warning. One moment he was staring at stellar coordinates, the next he was 14 years old in Denver. The sky was on fire. No, not fire. Ships. Arcturus warships burning through the atmosphere, the air raid sirens wailing across the city, his mother grabbing his hand, his father already in uniform kissing them both goodbye as he ran for his post at Peterson Air Force Base. The first bombardment hit the industrial sector. Nate felt it through the ground, a tremor that knocked him off his feet. His mother pulled him up. They ran, joined the stream of people heading for the civilian shelters. He looked back once, saw the mushroom cloud rising where the base had been, where his father had been. They made it to the shelter, hundreds of people crammed into a space built for half that. The bombardment lasted 3 hours. When they emerged, a quarter of the city was gone, including their home, including any hope that his father had survived. Nate blinked. He was back in the cockpit, sweat on his forehead, hands shaking slightly. 28 years ago, but the scars never healed. Not really. He heard movement behind him, turned to find Serafina standing in the cockpit entrance. She studied him with those piercing eyes. "You have the look," she said quietly. "Someone who's lost everything to war." "Don't we all?" Nate replied, "some more than others." She moved into the small space, stood beside him looking at the stars. "My father used to bring me to the observation deck in the palace. We'd watch the ships coming and going. He'd tell me about each world, each species, the history, the culture. He believed we could build something better than an empire, a true alliance of equals." "What happened to him?" "Kryn poisoned him, slowly, over 2 years. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. My father died thinking I'd learned his lessons, thinking I'd carry on his vision." Her jaw tightened. "Instead, I lost the throne within 6 months. I was too trusting, too naive. I thought my father's advisors would support me. I was wrong." "How'd Kryn do it?" "Fear. He convinced the military that I was weak, that my reforms would destroy the empire, that external enemies would exploit our compassion. One by one, my allies vanished. Some fled, some switched sides, some just disappeared in the night." She touched the window. "By the time I tried to act, it was over. I woke up in chains." Nate said nothing for a moment. "Then we're going to get you back that throne." She looked at him, really looked at him. "Why, you don't know me. You don't owe me anything." "Because it's the right thing to do," Nate said simply, "and because your father was right. We can build something better than empires built on fear." Her expression softened, just for a moment. Then the warrior mask came back. She turned and left the cockpit without another word. But Nate saw what she'd left behind, a small piece of paper tucked beside the navigation console. On it, written in perfect English, was a single sentence. "Lyra will map the cameras. Day 5. Be ready." Day 5. Lyra made her move. She'd been quiet all morning, quieter than usual, moving through the ship like a ghost, cleaning, organizing supplies, ostensibly making herself useful. But Nate watched her carefully, saw the pattern. She touched each camera location as she moved, casual, like brushing away dust. But her fingers lingered for just a moment, and her eyes tracked angles, sight lines, blind spots. By evening cycle, she'd made a complete circuit of the ship. She returned to the main cabin, where Nate and Serafina were reviewing star charts, playing the role of captor and reluctant servants. Lyra moved to the sleeping area. Nate saw her hand move, tracing shapes on the wall beside her bunk. The patterns looked random, abstract art from a bored prisoner. But when Nate examined them later during his own sleep cycle, he understood. It was a map, a complete schematic of every camera on the ship. 24 cameras marked with small circles, and one more saw a 25th camera that Lyra had found hidden inside a ventilation grate, smaller than the others, different design. Beside the 25th camera, Lyra had written in tiny script, "Volkar's private feed. Kryn doesn't know." Nate's mind raced through the implications. General Volkar, Kryn's right hand, the military commander who'd questioned his information in the throne room. If Volkar was running his own surveillance, that meant he didn't fully trust Kryn, or he was planning his own move. Either way, it was a crack in the Empire's unity, a weakness they could exploit. Nate found another dead drop location, a loose panel near the water recycler. He left a note written on a scrap of food packaging. Can we use this turn them against each other? The next morning he found a response. Serafina's handwriting this time. Already in motion. Watch, learn, say nothing. Day 7, the attack came without warning. Nate was in the cockpit running the morning navigation check when every system on the ship went haywire. Alarms screamed, red emergency lights flooded the cabin. The main engines cut out, leaving them drifting. "What's happening?" Serafina shouted from the main cabin. Nate's fingers flew across the controls. "External override. Someone's hijacking our systems remotely." The main view screen flickered to life. General Volkar's face filled it. 6 arms, black marble eyes, skin like tree bark. He looked exactly like what he was, a predator. Colonel Bridger, Volkar's voice rumbled. "The Overlord may be content to play games with you. I am not. You and the traitor Empress threaten the stability of the Empire. I will not allow you to reach human space." "You're going against Kryn," Nate asked. Buying time. His other hand was already accessing emergency protocols. "The Overlord has grown soft in his old age. Sentimental. He believes in teaching lessons through theater. I believe in eliminating threats." Volkar's face twisted into something that might have been a smile. "Your ship's life support will fail in 10 minutes. The explosion will look like an accident. Everyone will blame human engineering." Perfect. The screen went dark, but the countdown had started. 9 minutes, 50 seconds. Nate spun in his chair. Serafina was already at the main cabin controls. "Can you override?" "Not from here. The lockout is too deep." Her face was calm, but her eyes blazed. "We need to reroute control through the secondary systems. But that means physically accessing the main power junction. Where? Cargo hold, behind the shielding panels." "I'll go," Nate said. "No." Serafina was already moving. "You maintain ship attitude. Keep us stable. Lyra handles countermeasures. I'll do the manual work." She didn't wait for agreement, just ran for the cargo hold access. Lyra appeared from the sleeping area. Her face was white with fear, but her hands were steady. She took position at a secondary console. "I can slow his hack. Buy maybe 3 extra minutes, that's all." "Do it," Nate ordered. The ship shuddered. They were entering an asteroid field. Nate saw the rocks on the sensors. Thousands of them, ranging from pebbles to mountains. At their current drift velocity, they'd impact in 8 minutes. 7 minutes left before life support failed. "Serafina," Nate called into the internal comm. "Status. Working." Her voice came back strained. "These panels weren't designed for emergency access. Give me 4 minutes. You've got 6 until we hit the asteroids, and 7 until we can't breathe. Then I'd better work faster." Nate focused on the navigation. The ship still had maneuvering thrusters. Limited, but enough. He fired them in careful bursts, nudging their trajectory, threading between the larger asteroids. It was like flying through a minefield while blindfolded. An alarm shrieked. Proximity warning. An asteroid the size of a bus loomed dead ahead. Nate fired thrusters. Hard. The ship spun. The asteroid missed their main hull by 20 feet. But the spin was too fast. They were tumbling now. "Stabilize," Lyra shouted. Her fingers danced across her console. "I'm losing containment on his hack." "Working on it," Nate growled. He fought the controls, fired opposing thrusters. The tumble slowed, stopped, but they'd lost precious seconds. 5 minutes until life support failed. Another asteroid. Nate dodged. Then another. The field was getting denser. "Serafina, I need good news." "Almost there. I've got the primary coupling exposed. But there's a secondary lockout I didn't expect. It's going to take an impact, not asteroid. Weapons fire. Volkar had sent a drone ship to finish the job. Contact, Nate called. Defensive weapons online. Negative, Lyra said. He locked those too. Then we run. Nate fired all thrusters. Maximum burn. The ship leaped forward into the asteroid field. Not away from it, through it. More weapons fire. A blast took out their port stabilizer. The ship yawed hard to the left. Nate compensated, barely. 4 minutes until life support failed. Serafina. Got it. Triumph in her voice. Rerouting control now. Lyra, stand by to purge his access codes. Ready, ma'am, Lyra said. Done, ma'am. Teresa, awesome name. Now, every system on the ship went dark for 3 seconds. In that terrible silence, Nate heard his own heartbeat. Felt the ship drifting blind through an asteroid field with a hunter on their tail. Then the lights came back. Systems rebooted. Control returned. We're clear, Lyra shouted. His hack is locked out. Life support stabilizing. Nate didn't waste time celebrating. He grabbed the helm controls. The drone ship was still out there. He needed weapons, needed defenses, needed Serafina's voice came over the comm. Calm now, controlled. Colonel, transfer helm controls to cargo hold station. I'm taking over. You can't fly from back there. You don't have the right. Trust me. 2 seconds of hesitation. Then Nate transferred control. The ship moved like it had come alive. Serafina flew like she'd been born in space. She dove through gaps in the asteroid field that Nate would never have attempted, spun around a tumbling rock the size of a city block, used its mass to hide their thermal signature from the drone. The drone overshot, tried to come about. Too slow. Serafina was already moving. She brought them up under the drone's belly, its blind spot. Lyra, Serafina called, can you activate the cargo bay venting system? Yes, but why would Lyra's eyes widened? Oh, that's brilliant. Do it. 30 seconds later, the cargo bay explosive decompressed. The blast of escaping atmosphere hit the drone like a giant's fist, knocked it tumbling into an asteroid. The explosion lit up the view screen. Silence, except for the background hum of systems and the ragged breathing of 3 people who just survived the impossible. Nate found his voice. That was some flying. I was Royal Pilot Corps before I was Empress, Serafina said. Top of my class. Why didn't you mention that before? You didn't ask. Lyra laughed. It was a slightly hysterical sound, but genuine. We're alive. We actually survived. For now, Serafina said. She climbed up from the cargo hold, dirt and grease smeared across her metallic skin. But Volkar knows we can work together now. He'll tell Kryn, or maybe he won't. Maybe this was his play without Kryn's knowledge. Either way, Nate said, we're on borrowed time. Then we'd better make it count. Day 10, the message came from Kryn himself. All 3 of them were in the main cabin when the view screen activated without warning. Overlord Kryn's face appeared. His expression was unreadable. My dear niece, he said softly, did you enjoy your little adventure with General Volkar? Serafina's face showed nothing, but Nate saw her hands tense. I see, Kryn continued. You're wondering how much I know. The answer is everything. I know Volkar tried to kill you. I know you survived through cooperation. I know you think you're being clever. Playing a long game. Building an alliance. He leaned forward. I always knew you lied, Serafina. From the moment you offered to help me conquer Earth. You were never broken. Never defeated. You were biding your time. Waiting for an opportunity. Well played. Serafina stepped closer to the screen. If you knew, why did you let us go? Because you're still useful to me, but now the game becomes more interesting. Kryn's smile was terrible. You see, I have an operative on Earth, planted 5 years ago, deep cover. This operative has access to something called Nellis Air Force Base. I believe it's in a place called Nevada. Nate's blood turned to ice. This operative has placed a bomb, Kryn continued, in the main barracks complex. It will detonate in 72 hours unless I send the deactivation code. There are 12,000 military personnel currently stationed at that base. 12,000 lives, most of them young, barely more than children, really. You bastard, Nate whispered. Here is my offer, Kryn said. When you reach Earth, Serafina will surrender herself to my operative. She will be returned to Arcturus. Public execution, very dramatic. In exchange, I will deactivate the bomb. 12,000 humans live, 1 deposed empress dies. Simple mathematics. And if I don't, Serafina asked. Her voice was steady. Then those 12,000 deaths are on your conscience, and Colonel Bridger's, and dear Dr. Ashenhart's. You'll arrive at Earth as the cause of a massive tragedy. No one will trust you. No one will help you. Your revolution dies before it begins, and I will still hunt you down eventually. But this way, at least some humans survive. The screen went dark. Silence filled the cabin. Heavy, suffocating. Lyra spoke first. We have to abort. Get to Earth. Evacuate the base. We can... We don't know where the bomb is, Nate said. His mind was racing. Military training kicking in. Nellis is huge, 15 square miles, hundreds of buildings. If we evacuate without knowing the location, Kryn triggers it during the evacuation. Maximum casualties. So we surrender, Lyra asked. No. Serafina's voice cut through the despair like a blade. We save everyone. Nate looked at her. How about him? Give me the ship's secure communications array. I need 5 minutes, alone. The cameras. Let them watch. This doesn't matter anymore. We're past subtlety. She moved to the communications station. Both of you, trust me. Nate and Lyra exchanged glances. Then they left the main cabin. Through the door, they heard Serafina speaking. Not English, the Arcturus language. Her voice rose and fell in patterns that might have been code, or prayer, or command. 5 minutes. Then she emerged. It's done, she said. What's done? Nate asked. 5 years ago, when I still held the throne, I established a resistance network. Sleeper agents placed across the galaxy. Most were discovered and eliminated after Kryn took power. But some survived. Went so deep underground, even I lost contact with them. On Earth, Nate's eyes widened. You have agents on Earth. 3. Placed during diplomatic missions. Scientists ostensibly studying human culture. They've been dormant for 5 years, waiting for activation. Serafina's expression was grim. I just activated them. Gave them Kryn's description of the bomb. They'll find it. Disarm it. But Kryn will know, Lyra said. The moment the bomb is disarmed, he'll know you burned your network. Yes, 5 years of careful placement. 5 years of intelligence gathering. All of it exposed in one move, but 12,000 humans will live. That's the trade. Nate stared at her. You're sacrificing your entire spy network to save my people. It's not a sacrifice if it's the right thing to do, Serafina said. That's what my father taught me. A queen serves. She doesn't rule. She serves. Her voice cracked slightly, even if it cost her everything. The engines thrummed around them. Day 10 of 12, still 2 days from Earth. 2 days to pray that Serafina's agents could find one bomb in a facility that held 12,000 lives. Nate stepped forward, did something he hadn't done since this journey began. He extended his hand. Thank you. Serafina looked at the offered hand, then she took it. Her grip was strong, a warrior's grip, but also warm, human despite the metallic skin. We save everyone, she said, or we save no one. That's the only way I know how to fight. Day 12. They crossed into human space. The proximity alarm sounded. Nate moved to the cockpit. On the sensors, a ship appeared. Military profile, human design, USS Vigilance, a border patrol vessel. This is Captain Elizabeth Hawthorne of the Earth Defense Ship Vigilance, my friend. Unknown vessel, identify yourself and state your business in human space. Nate activated the transmitter. Captain Hawthorne, this is Colonel Nathaniel Bridger, serial number Delta 773 Charlie 6. I'm returning from Arcturus space with intelligence critical to Earth security. A pause, then Colonel Bridger. You're listed as missing in action. Lost 8 months ago. That's correct, ma'am. I've been held prisoner. I escaped with assistance from 2 Arcturus nationals. I'm requesting immediate extraction and secure transport to Earth Command. Stand by. 5 minutes of silence, then the comm crackled again. Colonel Bridger, we're sending a shuttle to dock with your vessel. Prepare to be boarded for identity verification and security screening. Understood. Nate turned to find Serafina and Lyra standing in the cockpit entrance. Both looked tense. This is it, Lyra said. The moment we find out if this whole insane plan has any chance of working. It'll work, Serafina said. But Nate heard the uncertainty underneath. It has to. 20 minutes later, the shuttle docked. The airlock cycled. 6 Marines entered the ship, weapons ready but not aimed. Behind them came Captain Hawthorne. She was 50-something, gray hair cut military short, eyes that missed nothing. She looked at Nate, studied him, then pulled out a portable scanner. Security protocols, Colonel, you understand. Of course, the scanner confirmed his identity. Hawthorne nodded. Welcome back, Colonel. Then her attention shifted to Serafina and Lyra. And these are, I am. Serafina stepped forward. When she spoke, her English was flawless. Perfect American accent. No trace of alien origins except the obvious physical differences. Captain Hawthorne, my name is Serafina Valcor. I am the legitimate empress of the Arcturus Empire, currently in exile. I am seeking asylum and requesting an urgent meeting with your planetary leadership. Hawthorne's eyebrows rose. That's quite a claim. I can prove everything. But first you need to know there's a bomb at Nellis Air Force Base. It's scheduled to detonate in 46 hours. I have operatives attempting to locate and disarm it, but you need to begin evacuation procedures immediately, just in case. A bomb at Nellis. Hawthorne's hand moved toward her sidearm. How do you know this? Because the man who planted it told me, as leverage to force my surrender. Serafina's voice didn't waver. I chose to save your people instead. But now we're in a race against time. Nate stepped up beside Serafina. Captain, I know how this sounds, but she's telling the truth. Everything she's told us has been accurate. And if there's even a chance she's right about the bomb, we can't risk it. Hawthorne studied them both, military instincts warring with protocol. Finally, she activated her comm. Vigilance. Priority Alpha communication to Earth Command. I need a direct line to General Blackwood. Tell her it's about Colonel Bridger. And tell her we might have a situation at Nellis. She turned back to them. You're all coming with me. We'll sort this out at the command center. But I'm warning you now, if this is some kind of trick. It's not, Serafina said. I'm betting everything on your people doing the right thing. Don't make me regret it. 46 hours until the bomb detonation deadline. The universe held its breath. Nate Bridger stood in a sterile conference room aboard the USS Vigilance, watching Earth grow larger through the viewport. That blue marble. Home. Somewhere down there, 12,000 military personnel went about their duties at Nellis Air Force Base, unaware that their lives hung by a thread. Behind him, the door opened. General Sarah Blackwood entered. She'd been his mentor 15 years ago, trained him in intelligence work, believed in him when others didn't. Now she looked at him with a mixture of relief and calculation. Tell me everything, Nate, from the beginning. So he did. The capture, the prison, the arena, the impossible choice, Serafina's plan, Lyra's brilliance. The Crown's cipher, the resistance network, the bomb. All of it spilled out in rapid, precise detail. When he finished, Blackwood sat back. This Empress, you trust her, man, with my life. She's already sacrificed everything to save our people. Her spy network, her anonymity, any hope of retaking her throne quietly. She's all in general. And the bomb, if her agents don't find it in time, we evacuate. But either way, she told the truth. She chose our lives over her strategic advantage. Blackwood was quiet for a long moment. Then the Joint Chiefs are convening now, emergency session. This decision goes above my pay grade, but for what it's worth. She leaned forward. I believe you, Nate. And if you trust her, that's enough for me to recommend we give her a chance. Thank you, General. Don't thank me yet. This is about to get very complicated. 38 hours until detonation. The secure facility outside Washington, D.C. was a maze of underground corridors and classified briefing rooms. Nate had been through 3 more debriefings, polygraphs, psychological evaluations. They were being thorough. Good. He found Serafina in her assigned quarters. She stood at the single window, looking out at the Virginia countryside. Even in simple Earth clothes, she carried herself like royalty. Back straight, shoulders back, a queen in exile. They're still deciding, Nate said. I know. She didn't turn from the window. Your people are careful, methodical. It's why you've survived as long as you have in a hostile galaxy. Serafina, your agents, have they? Found it, 20 minutes from. She turned then. Relief and exhaustion warred on her face. The bomb was in the Northwest Barracks complex, exactly where Kryn said. They disarmed it. Then they surrendered themselves to base security, as I instructed. Nate felt a weight lift from his chest. 12,000 lives. 12,000 lives, she repeated. And now my network is exposed. Kryn will know I activated them. He'll hunt down any remaining agents. 5 years of work, gone in one move. To save people you've never met, people who might not even help you in return. That's what my father would have done. Her voice was soft, almost vulnerable. He taught me that power without compassion is tyranny, but he never told me how much it would hurt. To choose right over easy, to sacrifice everything for principle. Before Nate could respond, a knock at the door, a Marine corporal. Ma'am, sir, you're both requested in Conference Room Alpha. The Joint Chiefs are ready. This was it, the moment everything pivoted. Conference Room Alpha was designed to intimidate. No windows, reinforced walls capable of withstanding a direct missile strike. The kind of room where decisions that shape civilizations were made. Around the long table sat the most powerful military leaders on Earth, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Secretary of Defense, representatives from the United Nations Security Council, and, at the head of the table, President Victoria Sterling. President Sterling was in her second term, former Navy admiral. She'd commanded carrier groups before entering politics. Nate had never met her in person, but her reputation preceded her. Fair but ruthless, strategic, uncompromising when it came to protecting American interests. She looked at Serafina with eyes that had seen combat and understood what it cost. Empress Valcor, Colonel Bridger, sit. They sat. We verified Colonel Bridger's account, Sterling said without preamble. Every detail we could check matches. Your 3 operatives at Nellis have confirmed your identity and the existence of the resistance network. More importantly, they disarmed a bomb exactly as you described. She nodded to an aide who activated a holographic display. Complex equations and quantum mechanics theories floated in the air. Dr. Ashenhart has provided detailed technical specifications for something called the Crown Cipher. Our scientists confirm it's theoretically possible. A quantum broadcast system encoded in royal genetics. Remarkable. Madam President, Serafina said, I appreciate the verification, but time is critical. Overlord Kryn knows by now that the bomb failed. He'll accelerate his plans. If we're going to act, it has to be soon. Which brings us to the question at hand. Sterling leaned forward. You're asking Earth to support a regime change in a foreign empire, to commit our resources and credibility to your restoration. That's not a decision we make lightly. Admiral Mitchell, Chief of Naval Operations, spoke up. Madam President, I understand the risks, but we need to consider the alternative. Overlord Kryn is massing forces on our borders. Intelligence suggests he's planning a major offensive within 6 months. This Empress might be our best chance at destabilizing the regime before shots are fired. Agreed, said General Blackwood. Moreover, Empress Serafina has already proven her good faith. She sacrificed a 5-year intelligence operation to save 12,000 American lives. That's not the action of someone playing games, the Secretary of State interjected. But we also need to consider the diplomatic implications. If we back her and she loses Kryn, we'll see Earth as an enemy. We could be looking at open war. We're already heading toward war, Sterling said quietly. The question is whether we fight it alone against a unified enemy or whether we have an ally on the inside creating chaos. The debate continued for 20 minutes, voices rising and falling, risk versus reward, morality versus pragmatism. The weight of 12,000 saved lives versus the potential cost of billions if things went wrong. Finally, Sterling held up her hand. Silence fell. Empress Valcor, one question. You have the Crown Cipher. You claim you can broadcast to every Arcturus world simultaneously, but activating it means shutting down your military grid, leaving your people defenseless. Are you prepared to do that? To risk everything on the hope that other species will protect them while they're vulnerable? Serafina stood. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of conviction. Madam President, my uncle rules through fear. He's convinced my people that only strength protects them. That compassion is weakness. I need to prove him wrong. I need to show them that asking for help isn't surrender. It's wisdom. That trust can be stronger than weapons. She paused, met Sterling's eyes directly. Yes, I will make my people defenseless. Because that's the only way to prove that a different path is possible. That's the only way to show that cooperation is stronger than conquest. And if no one steps up to protect us, if the galaxy abandons us when we're vulnerable, Then maybe Kryn was right. Maybe fear is all that matters. The room fell silent. Sterling studied Serafina for a long moment. Then she stood. Then Earth stands with you. We'll provide the platform for the Galactic Council. We'll support your testimony with our intelligence. And when you activate that cipher, we'll be part of the coalition that defends your people while they're vulnerable. She extended her hand. Serafina took it. Don't make me regret this, Empress. I won't, Madam President, I promise you that. 28 hours until the emergency Galactic Council session. The council chamber had been constructed in record time at the United Nations complex in New York. A massive circular space with seating for 200 delegates representing 47 species from across known space. Holographic displays surrounded the central platform, ready to project evidence across light years. Nate stood in the observation gallery, watching technicians complete the final setup. Beside him, Lyra reviewed her technical notes one more time. She'd be running the Crown Cipher interface. The success of everything depended on her expertise. Are you ready? Nate asked. No, Lyra said honestly, but I'll do it anyway. That's what this has all been about, hasn't it? Doing the right thing even when you're terrified. That's the definition of courage, Nate said. Below them, Serafina entered the chamber. She wore armor now, battle armor, functional, scarred from real combat. Her white hair was braided back in a warrior style. She walked to the central platform alone. This was her moment. Her chance to make the case that would either free billions or condemn them to continued tyranny. The speaker of the Galactic Council called for order. She was a being from the Therian Collective. Small, crystalline skin that refracted light into rainbows. Her voice, when amplified, sounded like music. This emergency session convenes to hear testimony regarding alleged war crimes committed by Overlord Kryn Mordain of the Arcturus Empire. Empress Serafina Valcor, you may present your evidence. Serafina activated the Crown Cipher. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. Every holographic display in the room lit up simultaneously, and what they showed made hardened warriors look away. The genocide of the Therian border colonies. Entire cities reduced to glass. Millions dead. The hologram showed Kryn giving the order personally, his voice calm, matter-of-fact, like he was ordering dinner instead of mass murder. The labor camps. 2.4 million beings from 17 species, worked until they died and replaced with fresh prisoners. The footage was from inside the camps. Children laboring in mines, elderly beings collapsing from exhaustion, guards executing anyone who fell behind. The assassination of Emperor Valcor, Serafina's father. The hologram showed him in his private chambers, drinking wine, then convulsing, dying slowly over hours while someone filmed, while they documented every moment of agony. Serafina narrated each piece of evidence. Her voice never wavered, never broke. But Nate could see the key. Each image, each atrocity, each crime against her people. She'd been carrying this weight for 5 years, and now she was sharing it with the galaxy. When the evidence concluded, the chamber sat in stunned silence. The speaker found her voice. The evidence is comprehensive and damning. The question before this council is, what action shall we take? A delegate from the Krell Dominion stood, massive, 7 feet tall, skin like stone. Evidence means nothing without the power to act. Overlord Kryn commands the largest military force in this sector. How does this council propose to challenge that? Serafina stepped forward. I can shut down that military force. Completely. Right now. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Crown Cipher is more than a communications system, Serafina continued. It's a fail-safe built into the Empire by my ancestors, a way to prevent the tyrants from using the military to oppress the people. I can activate it from this room. Every ship, every weapons platform, every defense station, all of it goes offline and leaves your people defenseless, another delegate said. Without military protection, you'll be vulnerable to any aggressor. Which is why I need your help. Her gaze swept the room. I'm not asking you to fight my war. I'm asking you to protect my people while they remove a tyrant. Give them the chance to choose their own future. Without fear. Without coercion. And if we refuse, the Krell delegate asked, then Kryn remains in power. The tyranny continues, the expansion continues. Eventually he'll come for each of your worlds, one by one, because that's what tyrants do. They never stop until they're stopped. President Sterling stood in the Earth delegation section. The United States pledges support. Will commit fleet assets to defend Arcturus space during the transition. One by one other delegates stood. The Therian Collective, the Orion Federation, the Andromeda Alliance. 7 species total, 7 out of 47, not a majority, but enough. The speaker called for a vote. All those in favor of supporting regime change in the Arcturus Empire and providing defensive assistance during the transition period signify. 23 delegates voted yes, 15 voted no. 9 abstained, a majority, slim but real. The motion carries, the speaker announced. Empress Serafina Valcor, you have the council's authority to proceed. Serafina walked to the technical station where Lyra waited. The scientist's hands flew across controls, configuring, calibrating, preparing. This is it, Serafina said quietly. Once I activate the cipher, there's no going back. A new hologram appeared. Overlord Kryn, broadcasting from his throne room. He looked older than Nate remembered, more tired, but those eyes still burned with terrible certainty. So, my niece makes her play. I confess I'm impressed. You've exceeded my expectations at every turn. This ends now, Kryn, Serafina said. Your tyranny ends. My people deserve better. Do they? Or do they deserve order, strength, protection from chaos? Kryn leaned forward. You're about to make them defenseless, Serafina. Are you prepared for what that means? I'm prepared to trust them, Serafina said, to choose freedom over security, to choose justice over stability. That's what my father taught me. Then you're a fool, just as he was. Kryn's face twisted. Activate your cipher. Prove that mercy is weakness. Do it. Serafina's hand moved to the final activation command. She looked at Nate, at Lyra, at the assembled delegates, at the billions watching across the galaxy. Then she pressed the button. Every display showed the same thing. The Arcturus military grid, thousands of ships, hundreds of stations, defense platforms, weapons satellites, all of them going dark simultaneously. Status indicators shifting from green to red to black. An empire's sword sheathed in an instant. And on every world, on every ship, on every station where Arcturus citizens lived, her hologram appeared, broadcasting simultaneously to billions. My people, I am Serafina Valcor, your empress. 5 years ago, I was overthrown by my uncle Kryn Mordain. He told you I was weak. That compassion made me unfit to rule. That only strength could protect the empire. She paused. I have just deactivated our military systems. All of them. We are defenseless, and I did this deliberately. To prove something, to show you something, to give you something. Another pause. I am giving you a choice. Not a command, not an order. A choice. You can support Kryn. Keep him in power. Reactivate the systems and continue as before. Or you can choose something different, something harder, something better. You can choose freedom. The evidence played again. All of it. The war crimes, the genocide, the labor camps, the murder. Everything laid bare for the empire to see. Kryn told you these were necessary, that security required cruelty, that order demanded oppression. He was wrong, and I stand here defenseless before you to prove it. If strength alone mattered, I would already be dead. But I believe in something stronger than weapons. I believe in you. Choose, not for me, for yourselves, for your children, for the future you want to build. I will abide by your decision. If you choose Kryn, I accept that. If you choose me, I will serve you. Not as a tyrant, as your servant, as my father taught me. The choice is yours. The hologram faded. The response came in waves. First, the military. Garrison Commander Thex of the Outer Rim Forces. His hologram appeared. Battle-scarred. Veteran. Standing in his command center surrounded by officers. The Fourth Fleet stands with Empress Serafina. We have arrested our Kryn-appointed political officers. We await your orders, Your Majesty. Then Governor Alara of the Core Worlds. She was old, had had served under Seraphina's father. Her voice shook with emotion. The people of Arcturus Prime declare for the true Empress. We are holding elections for a civilian council. Welcome home, Your Majesty. One by one. Dozens. Hundreds. Military commanders, planetary governors, station administrators, scientists, teachers, workers' collectives. A cascade of declarations. But not everyone chose Seraphina. Some systems declared for Kryn. Some argued for waiting. Some went silent, uncertain. Through it all, Seraphina stood at the platform, watching, listening. Her face showed nothing, but Nate saw her hands tremble. Then came the transmission everyone had been dreading. General Volkar, in Kryn's throne room, standing over the bone-white throne, and Kryn was in chains. People of Arcturus, Volkar's voice boomed. Overlord Kryn has been arrested for crimes against the Empire. I assume temporary military command pending restoration of legitimate government. Seraphina's eyes widened. However, Volkar continued, I recognize Empress Seraphina as the legal heir. I pledge the loyalty of the First Legion to her restoration. Your Majesty, the capital awaits you. The hologram shifted, showed the throne room. Kryn was gone. In his place, a simple chair, waiting. Seraphina turned to Nate. Did you expect this? Volkar's ambitious, Nate said. But he's also smart. He saw which way this was going and got ahead of it. Or he's planning to kill me the moment I arrive, Seraphina said. Could be both, Lyra said. She'd been monitoring communications. But the reports are real. 73% of Arcturus worlds have declared for you. Kryn's support has collapsed. If Volkar wanted power, now would be the time. Instead, he's offering it to you. Then I have to go, Seraphina said. Now, before this turns bloody. We go, Nate corrected. You're not doing this alone. President Sterling stepped forward. The USS Enterprise and her battle group are already in Arcturus space. You'll have an escort. We're not letting you walk into a trap. No trap materialized. When Seraphina's ship, escorted by Earth's carrier battle group and 6 other species fleets, entered Arcturus capital space, they found no resistance. Kryn's loyalist forces had surrendered, garrison after garrison declaring for the coalition. The capital world blazed with celebration. Millions in the streets, banners, lights, hope made visible. General Volkar met them in the throne room. Up close, he was even more imposing. 6 arms folded in traditional respect. Your Majesty, welcome home. General Volkar, Seraphina's hand rested on her sword. Where is my uncle? In the holding cells, awaiting trial by civilian tribunal. I ordered no such thing. You said the people should choose. I took that to mean they should also judge. Volkar's expression was unreadable. Was I mistaken? Seraphina studied him. No, you were not. The people will judge him. She walked past Volkar to the throne. That massive seat of bone-white material, symbol of absolute power. She stared at it, then turned away. General, summon the civic leaders, every voice that wants to be heard. We're designing a new government, one where this throne is ceremonial, where power flows from the people. Your Majesty, Volkar said carefully, you are giving up authority before you even claim it. I never wanted absolute authority. I wanted my people free. There's a difference, Omicron. 3 months of constitutional convention. Representatives from every world. Debates, arguments, compromises. The creation of a parliament with real power. A judiciary independent of the crown. A military oath sworn to the people, not the monarch. Seraphina presided over her own diminishment. Transformed herself from absolute ruler to constitutional monarch. Kryn's trial lasted 2 weeks. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty. But the tribunal chose life imprisonment over execution. To watch the empire flourish without him. Seraphina visited him once. You were wrong, she told him through the energy barrier. Compassion isn't weakness. Kryn looked old, broken. We'll see. When crisis comes, you will understand. Perhaps, or perhaps we'll prove there's a third way. She never returned. 6 months after the revolution, the liberation fleets launched. 8 planets still held labor camps. 2.4 million beings in chains. Seraphina led the first fleet personally. Nate commanded tactical operations. Lyra coordinated with resistance cells. World by world, they freed them all. The final liberation came on Therion 7, 400,000 prisoners from 20 species. When the gates opened, Nate stood beside Serafina and watched history being made. "We did it," she said. "Every single one. Free." "You did it," Nate corrected. "No, we did it together. That's the point." 1 year after the revolution, Serafina's coronation, not in the throne room, in the city square where millions could attend. She wore simple robes, no crown, no scepter. The oath she swore was to serve, to protect, to preserve the freedoms her people had claimed. Her speech would be studied for generations. "My father taught me that a queen serves her people. I didn't understand until I lost everything, until I was helpless and needed others to choose freedom for themselves. Today, I am crowned as a servant leader. My power is limited by law, my authority checked by parliament, my decisions subject to the will of the people. And that is exactly as it should be. Because true strength isn't about power held. It's about power given away. It's about trusting others to choose wisely, to choose freedom. My uncle believed only force could govern. He was wrong. We stand here because we chose something harder. We chose to believe in each other." The crowd erupted, not in fearful obedience, in joyful chaos. The reception that night, palace gardens, under alien stars. Nate found Serafina on a balcony overlooking the city. "You did it," he said. "Everything you set out to do." "We did it," she corrected. Again, always we. "What happens now? Now we do the hard work. Governing is harder than liberating." "Think we can do it?" "I think we have to try." She looked at him. "Will you stay?" Nate thought about Denver, about Earth, about the boy he'd been. "I am home," he said. "This work, these people, you, this is where I belong." She smiled, took his hand. "Good. We're going to need you." They stood together as the party continued below. Two people from different worlds brought together by chance and choice and the stubborn belief that the universe could be better. In the throne room, the bone-white throne sat empty, a relic. In the new Parliament building, 200 seats waited. 200 voices. The age of tyrants was ending. The age of choice had begun. 10 years later. Nate Bridger stood in the arena where his story began. Now a museum, a memorial. He gave an annual lecture, students from 40 species learning history. The key moment, he told them, wasn't when I refused to choose. It wasn't the crown's cipher activation. It wasn't even the coronation. The key moment was earlier, when a warrior empress and a scholar made a choice in prison. They chose to hope, to believe one honorable person might make a difference. They bet everything on the possibility that given a choice, most people will choose right. And they were correct. A young student raised her hand. "Ambassador Bridger, if you had to do it again, would you still choose neither?" Nate smiled, every single time. After the lecture, he walked through the exhibits, saw the hologram of that moment, himself in the arena, two women in chains. "I choose neither." 3 words that became a movement. He found Serafina waiting outside, still wearing simple robes, still refusing the crown except for ceremonies. 10 years of peace showed in her face, tired but happy. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready." They walked through streets filled with beings from 100 worlds. The Arcturus Empire had become the Arcturus Alliance, imperfect, struggling, but free. They reached the monument, a simple stone column, 2,400,000 names, every slave freed. At the base, words in 40 languages. "Freedom is not won, it is chosen every day by everyone." Serafina placed her hand on the stone. Nate did the same. Behind them, the city lived, breathed, dreamed, free. They had won, not through force, through choice, through trust, through belief that compassion was strength. As the sun set over Arcturus Prime, Nate understood something profound. He'd come as a prisoner, a soldier, a survivor. He stayed as something else, a witness to what happened when people chose freedom over fear, proof that the impossible was possible. that one person's choice could cascade into millions. That hope was stronger than empires. Serafina's voice broke his reverie. You're thinking too much. Just remembering. We still have work, she said. The Zorgath situation, the colonies. Parliament's deadlocked on tomorrow, Nate said. Tonight, let's just remember we did something impossible. We did, didn't we? Around them, city lights came on. Millions of them. Each one a life, a choice, a possibility. The warrior queen and the human colonel, the scholar and the soldiers, the leaders and the led. All of them together, all of them free. All of them choosing every single day to build something better. And in that choice, in that eternal choice, lay everything that mattered, everything that ever would.